because we've had a few people requesting to watch it later on. So just click the okay on that for me. To get started with our workshop for today, to welcome you back to the semester, I'd just like to thank you for being here and express my gratitude to be able to do this work with all of you on Mimipu land. Today our session is Connecting Campus Programming to Teaching and Learning. And I won't be talking that much. I'm going to kick things off and then I'll step out of the picture for a little bit and let some of our other presenters do the talking. But to get started, let's do some introductions. I think we kind of know each other, but it feels amazing to be in this space and to do this normal thing of introducing ourselves to one another. So I'm Marlo in English. I'm the director of the CTL, and maybe we'll do our in the room participants first and then turn to Zoom introductions. So
hi, I'm Kerensa Allison and I teach over in social sciences. I teach anthropology.
I'm Jennifer Anderson and I teach creative writing and publishing arts and other English stuff.
Lauren Farley and I'm writing.
Renee Paris and I teach literature. Sarah Graham and I teach music.
And I'm Erin Cassetto. I'm the director of the Student Employment and Career Center and LC Work Scholars.
I'm Eli Hoffman. I'm also in the social sciences. I teach political science and also geography.
Nancy? Oh, you're muted.
Zoom. I'm Nancy Lee Painter, and I teach theater on campus.
Rachel?
I'm Rachel in chemistry. And when I leave like halfway through, it's not because I'm offended. I just wanted to be here to get to hear as much as I could before my next meeting.
We're glad you're here. All right. I am going to share my screen. Okay. So this session is Connecting Campus Programming to Teaching and Learning, and we just did our introductions. I figured I would rather see all of you than this slide while we were doing that. One of the reasons we're doing this session is we had done one last year that previewed some of the spring events, and one of our goals is to remind everyone what's going on campus so that you can work these events into your teaching throughout the semester, but then also to brainstorm some ideas for how we do that. So here's a quick calendar that I put together of some of the events that are happening this semester, and I'm going to invite anyone who knows of additional events for the fall to go ahead and let us know. But obviously, we all know that tomorrow is convocation and new student orientation is happening. September is a huge month. We're going to be talking a lot about those events, but we've got Multicultural Awareness Month. And there are several events that Kerensa will talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. Also Constitution Day, homecoming, the Persian art opening in October. We've got the career fair, the LCSC Halloween concert, the visiting writer Honoré Fanon Jeffers, and the Moore honorary lecture. In November, we've got, I hope, our production of Glass Heart. And yeah, I see Nancy crossing her fingers there. So before we move on to talking in more detail, are there other events that are happening in the fall that anyone would like to draw our attention to?
They're embedded a little bit in a couple of my slides,
Okay.
But it's like weekly and regular events that are coming up. So I'll chat about those when it comes up, but otherwise, yeah.
I mean, the welcome fair nights.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
welcome
Well, that's a
fair.
great idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, which is Wednesday?
Yes.
Mhm.
10 to 1.
Yeah. All right, thanks. And so we've also got a board. I don't know if I can show, people on Zoom. I guess if I stand by it, it should show up, right? But over here, this board will stay up looking like this for a while. So as you have events that you know about, I encourage you when you come into the CTL, just to add something about what campus and community events you are looking forward to as the semester goes on. On this board, I see commencement, Native American Awareness Week, which is March. There's a lot of spring stuff on here, which is great. The Stegner Lecture in April, Silverthorne Theater Productions, and the NAI World Series, and we'll just keep growing this, right? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Kerensa now.
Yeah, well, that's tiny print, but of course, I've sent this out. Hopefully we have gotten a copy of it. If you haven't gotten a copy of it, you can find it online by typing it in, and so it pops up, and if you can't find it, just let me know. I'll shoot you a
Actually,
copy.
I'm also going to put in the chat a link to the
Okay,
folder.
yep, so we'll do a link, and I'm gonna make some flyers, so we'll have them out there from Multicultural Awareness Week, and if you want to stop
Maybe I'll
by
do that
and
later.
ask us questions or get ideas, I'm happy to talk, and I'll have some students out there as well. So we decided this year to kind of follow Black Awareness Month, like in the sense that we thought a week-long event just wasn't enough, and especially in this climate, we just really wanted to have more events and kind of spread them out. And so we decided to put together kind of 2 or 3 things that are happening every week in September, and try to create some consistency, but hopefully there's also some diversity. So if one schedule didn't work, we're trying to kind of find some platforms that people can come. Our first event, actually, like Hoffman, is going to kick off the first event, which is a leadership series. And what I loved as we're thinking about kind of how to connect on campus is that Holly and Erica Allen and some others contacted me and said, hey, how can we make the leadership series connect with Multicultural Awareness Week? And so those are some of the partnerships that we might think about, like when we can kind of collaborate if we know that there are events. Life, do you want to say of one sentence?
Well,
kind of
I'm
what
still
are you still
working
working
on
on it?
So I'm still working on it, but the basic idea which I have in my mind is to think about behaviors or sentences, most likely centering it on Germany and Europe. But things like I play sometimes also in my classes, or I've been doing to give advice to businesses. So just think about it. In my place, it's not Europe, but how we hand over business cards. But one case study I might be playing is why has Walmart not been successful? And it has a very cultural answer why they were not very successful in Germany. So to give you the one gist, I'll leave it at that, is this: you cannot force, this is not a joke, you cannot force a German to smile. That's an American thing. We have a right, we literally have a legal right to not smile to the ground. I'll leave it at that. We're going to see it on September 2nd.
Yeah, and they reached out to me and they said, who could, what kind of topic? And I was thinking about leadership skills, and I think obviously communication and miscommunication is something that we should think about. And Life and I have talked often about just stories of things that we know, especially in our travels, or just even talking to some of my international students who have come from different spaces and their experiences. And so I'm really glad that I kind of said, hey, ask Life if he'll do it. And I'm glad he accepted. But I think this is, again, one of those opportunities. I know I talk too much because Erin might be talking about this, but the leadership series is something we can promote on campus because students can actually get some credentials from it. And so not only are they engaging in Multicultural Awareness Week, but also getting leadership skills. And so I think this is a way to really promote it in your classes. So that will be available both, well, right now it's available in person over in the sub, and we'll Zoom it as well. So we'll do both of those. And if it's okay with people, I we'll ask if we can record it and like last year, try to post it on our main page so that if students weren't able, if you're offering extra credit, the idea is that hopefully many of these events will still be recorded and they can access them if they can't go at those exact times. I'm excited because there's so many cool things happening in September. We actually had a little bit of trouble just finding a good time for our keynote. Please promote our keynote. So it's really early in the term. So it's on September 7th from 7 to 8 p.m. We're going to do all this stuff over in the WCC because we can open up the room really wide and have some pretty good social distancing. And they've actually equipped it with some really good sound equipment and screens. And so they've really updated it so that we can have a very kind of visibly pleasing and sound production. So I hope this should be good. We'll have a sign language interpreter there as well. We'll Zoom it. We'll hopefully have in person, but not on her signage. But what I loved, if you go to our website, her bio is really lovely. If you don't know Suanne Ramella, she's worked in public broadcasting for 20 years, covering lots of stories of the region. She grew up on the McCord Air Force Base in Washington. She's a WSU alum. She raises pigs, chickens. She has 2 kids. She lives in Moscow, Idaho. She tries to grow vegetables, which I thought was lovely. She's half Korean. And so one of the pieces that she talked to me when we thought about a topic for this keynote is that she's really interested, obviously, in media representation, which is the what people see and what's presented to people and what that is important, but also she's really exploring for herself her own identity as being half Korean, and that's kind of a new journey. And so she's going to sprinkle some of that personal journey in amongst her conversation on media representation. And also her mother's from South Korea, her father's from Pennsylvania with Italian stock. And so the last part of her bio, I think it'll be engaging. So if she talks passionately, like I like to do, with her hand flapping around, it's likely genetic. So that's what's in her bio. So I know it's going to be lovely. She's a public figure. She's just the nicest person ever. So even just organizing this keynote has been a pleasure. I'm like, oh, I hope she wants to be friends when we're done. Because I think she's super cool. So please promote it. I think she's lovely. I think it'll be well worth our time. And so kind of moving, do you want to go back to the schedule? I don't know if they can see it super well, but kind of going back. Also that first week, we have the Native American Friendship Lunch. If we can serve food, we will. If nothing else, I think it's still really lovely to have. We hopefully will have students be able just to go find Piankynwas and have a conversation about what Piankynwas is and meet Bob and Sam and some of the lovely students that are part of the Native American Club, invite people to participate. So in some way we'll get people over to Piankynwas and so just inviting students to have that space. Every Thursday in September, there'll be Cahoots Around the World trivia, and we're working with Holly Dowdy. And again, this is in person and on Zoom. And clubs that are associated with multicultural, kind of their constitution or their mission is about multicultural awareness, are going to lead these trivia. And so like the first one is going to be the Anthropology Club, which is me, and I'm working with Manny Moa, and she does the Multicultural Student Organization. So we're going to pair up. We'll have 30 questions that are focused and targeted on multicultural topics. And so each Thursday, and we have some great prizes. So not only if you're promoting this in your class, if extra credit is not an option, you could say, oh, but you could win some cool prizes. So come, I think it'll be fun, and that'll happen every Thursday at 6 o'clock. Sometimes stuff is a good way to get people there. So I think that's good. Okay, so jumping into week 2, am I taking too long? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so 9:13, again, we're trying to keep these evening events from 7 to 8. Hopefully Jace can come from Hawaii. If not, we'll Zoom him in. It sounds like. Do you want to just talk for a minute about Jace? We've had him on campus before, and he's lovely.
Yeah, he's kind of going to do a part 2 from the talk he did on Queen Liliuokalani's music the last time he was here. But he's going to expand on that and then also talk about ownership, like who owns songs, who owns music, which should be really interesting. Everything he does is really interesting because he's just engaging. He'll probably have people hula dancing like he did last time and all of that as well. And then he's doing a session at the CTL Monday as well. That's not on this schedule, but it's for faculty on decolonizing pedagogy. He'll be talking to my Music in America class about, or kind of talking a little bit about what he did in your class last time
Oh,
about
that's so good.
early Hawaiian music and kind of the stereotypes that we have of Hawaii and Hawaiian culture and music especially, and how those developed, all that. And then he's going to be visiting Kerensa's class, gender and identity, because he also talks a lot about the,
I think it's mom.
yeah.
The Mahu, so he's
Yeah,
gonna
Mahu,
talk
yeah.
about third gender. So
Yes.
he's gonna talk about third gender category in my gender class. And that's not on here either, but if we have enough space or not enough interest, I'm happy to have people come to that conversation. So that's not on here, but again, connecting, if you're like, we have students or club or your class, you feel like that's a topic that would be welcome, or you're just interested, or talking about transgender, third gender, intersex. I mean, these are interesting topics, and yeah. We'll ask. My class probably would not be recorded, but I'm hoping he'll, with his talk, his public talk, maybe we'll ask him if he's okay with recording it.
For all of these?
That's the plan, but I'll ask the speakers. So that I want to ask and kind of respect the speakers if they want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going, I could make assignments out of this, but I would need to know that students have access to it afterwards to be able to
Yeah.
say.
The
Does it
goal
require
is, and maybe what I can do really quickly is, do you want to ask him if he would be
Yeah.
okay? Life, are you okay with yours being recorded? Yeah, and so I'll ask our keynote. I told her that we wanted to record it and she didn't say no, but I didn't ask her directly, but I can ask her really quickly. We're going to do a documentary. So the Landfill Harmonic, which is, I've not watched it, but I've heard really lovely things.
It's really good. I have seen it. Yeah, very inspiring. And just, I haven't quite seen a film like it, so I recommend it.
Yeah, and they're making instruments out of
Trash.
Trash.
Yeah, like that they find in the landfill and they play like classical music.
Yeah, and there'll be a discussion afterwards. So that will be Ed Fragaliano and Maria Jimenez and Talia Fajardo. I don't know these students, but 2 students and Edgar will be coming to talk about the film afterwards. So I think that'll be lovely. That week they've also asked me, I'm talking the 3rd week about the Ecuador program. And leadership skills that you can gain from studying abroad and kind of learning and working cross-culturally, whether you study abroad or not. But so I'm going to talk about that. Unfortunately, we won't be going to Ecuador this year. So it's also a way for me just to at least keep it kind of in people's minds, especially if they're new students, that hopefully if we get to a point where we can travel again, I hope students will travel with me to Ecuador. So I'll do a presentation on leadership at the 3rd week. But to kind of promote it, they asked me for some Ecuadorian dishes. And so I gave them some of my favorite, like ceviche and potato cakes and potato soup and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I hope they'll make it. I think Sodexo is going to make it and I'm going to serve it in the sub. So if everything goes well, hopefully I'll still be able to do that. You should come eat delicious Ecuadorian food and just say hi. But so tentatively, that's going to be Tuesday, September 14th, if people are interested. I'm super excited about week 3. We did a panel discussion on race last time, and we did it on Zoom, and it was really well attended, and the conversation was just lovely. This is going to be recorded, and the people who have been invited have been told it'll be all on Zoom. So I came up with this topic with my students that are in the anthropology club. And they came up with the title, Click All That Apply. And so the foundation of this is like when you fill out an application and you have to click all these boxes that are supposed to embody some aspect of your identity that don't really capture maybe the complexity of what that looks like and how that maybe has changed or made you feel. And I just thought my students were really insightful in kind of thinking about that. And so I've asked a lot of people actually to participate, but right now for sure we have Rachel Hull, Isaiah Linaberry, Max Galliano, Krista Abdul Karim, who's an adjunct faculty here. Bob Sabota will be on it if he has to. He's so sweet. So Bob may be on it, but if I can find someone else that he would prefer not. We're recording this too. He'll be able to see. I said that. And then Manny Moa also. She said she would also be on it. And I have a couple other calls out to see if, so we like to have a nice kind of faculty and student panel, about 6-7 people. And so, and I'll moderate, and we already have some really good questions and conversations. So I think it'll be lovely. Throughout this whole project, so starting, I'm kind of backing up a little bit, sorry. So on 9/22, I don't know if you know that this week is also homecoming. So the third week in September is also homecoming. So we were trying to find some things that kind of balance together. We're doing a big art project, an identity art project. So Manuel is going to work on that, and she's going to start that at Welcome Week and then come to some classes, and then they're actually going to reveal it that day. I'm going to present on the Ecuador Field School, the Cahoots Around the World trivia. And this is where we get a little bit tricky. The Center for Arts and History, they were going to do Introduction to Persian Culture to the West, the land of Persepolis. That art exhibit, as far as I know, will be up. So from September 24th to December 10th, that they were going to have an opening reception, and the foundations of that reception are not going so well, just because we don't know about travel and things. So I'll keep everybody updated. They were hoping to have a dinner and food and dancers, and it was going to be lovely. And those things are just not working out. Okay, and then finally, 4th week, sorry.
No, you're fine. I just thought I wanted these, this is your assignment.
Oh, yes.
So that people have it.
So the last week we're going to bring, we're working with the international programs, and they're going to set up a nice display of Discover Culture. And so students can come and interact with all of our students. They're going to put together little mini presentations, and you can move around to their table and talk to them and ask questions, and potentially a formal presentation to begin with, but it'll be kind of a nice interaction with our international programs. And we have lots of students right now that are coming, so I think it'll be lovely. And I did put together an extra credit assignment, trying to make it broad. I use this because I can do it for any of these. I tried to make it broad enough that you could go to any of these events or even the documentary and tie it into your class. Like, what were 3 important topics presented? But when I've used this in the past, what I love is to tie it in with the objectives. So whatever the objectives are to your class, you can get them back, like go back and say, hey, what are the goals for our class? And can you think about how this presentation or this panel or even this documentary showed that, or try to help them connect with it. And so that works, and you can adjust it. My classes are cultural, so generally they're pretty easy to connect with, but if you need help thinking about that, I can sure help you. The conclusion is actually my favorite part of this extra credit, which is to upload a picture or 2 and actually talk about what the presentation, and that's, I wouldn't cut that. If nothing else, you could just do the conclusion part if you wanted it to be, what did this mean to you and why, with some pictures. And it doesn't have to be a picture of them. And I remind that because sometimes they're like, they think that you want to take a picture at the event, like to prove that they were there, and like, oh no, this doesn't have, that's just more about like the symbology or the what it meant to you from that perspective. And especially if it's a talk on identity, if an experience, these have been lovely stories. Like, I love this extra credit, so I hope you'll consider it, or I think you could do it for any community event pretty well. So that's it. That I probably went over my 10 minutes. Sorry.
Thanks, Kerensa. And I tried to put a link to the assignments in the chat, and I did a bunch of other stuff while I was trying to do that. Sorry if it looked funky. We will be sharing a folder with resources, so if it didn't work, I will make those available to everyone.
So I'll go through the first couple of slides a little bit quickly, but I wanted everybody to have just a quick glance at Handshake, and also say that any faculty staff member can also have a Handshake account, just so they can see what the students see. Some of you, I was able to make it around to division meeting, so you heard me say this yesterday, but I wanted to say that again today. And since it's being recorded, I'll get it out to more people too. The nice thing about this is that if your students do ask questions, you can always send them to us, but it is always kind of nice to know, oh, this is what they're referring to. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Can we just email you, like if we want to do that?
You can just email me. Really, what I love to do is just all over the phone say, yeah, let's get you set up right now. We walk you through it, and then I show you a couple of tips. just to get you started, and then you're good to go from there. It's pretty user friendly. If you have LinkedIn, if you've done any sort of social media, you're gonna get it pretty naturally. But there are a couple of things that it would take some time to stumble upon, which would be important for students. Like there's networking opportunities out there, or if I pull up Costco, there's students who have said, yeah, I had an internship interview. Here are some of the big questions that they asked. And so those things are like cheat sheets for our students that are just brilliant, right? And so for them to be able to have access to that is just such a great tool. So, and that goes for SEL, it goes for a lot of different businesses where our students are really interested in working, just off the top of my head. But the resources that really came online last year, and I wanted to promote more this year, is the appointments. We have an appointment feature where they can either choose to Zoom with us, or they can choose to have a meeting with us, and they select a time. We try to have as much open as possible within the week. Of course, you know, I have 3 staff members, so we have some meetings too, but we have a lot of availability out there. If they really can't find the time, I just encourage students to call us, but there's a lot of meeting times out there, and they can select exactly what they want to meet with us for. And then it'll send them a prompt that says, hey, okay, we're going to talk about your resume. Do you have a specific job that you're applying to? Please send us the job description. Send us your resume ahead of time. That way we can do our homework ahead of time too, and really get ready for that meeting and be prepared. So that's under the appointments feature. Under the resources feature, we do try to keep updated blog posts out there, not from our office, but it's blogs that we've found and linked to that are usually hot topics. So definitely last year it was video interviewing. So we put some blog posts out there, and we would send students out to read that and talk with us about it as well. And then also we do have downloadable templates like resume templates, and the resume template that is out there will walk them through what a resume should look like. It's been vetted by a number of different businesses, and we're trying to keep it as generic as possible for as many degrees as possible. But it is definitely where they need to be as far as a professional resume is concerned. And I have had a little bit of feedback that, oh my goodness, this is pretty involved. Well, that's where resumes are today. They're involved. And to be competitive, we really need to get everybody up to speed with that. So so that is out there. It does have those comments explaining and walking people through it. And then we're there to help along the way too. So please call us. Happy to get you started there. Career fair, next one on the list. So it's awful being the driver. So the career fair is October 7th, so I'll talk through it. What I wanted to encourage today is that you don't always have to be job seeking in the moment. It's such a great opportunity to send students over and say, walk up to a recruiter and say, this is my degree. What are some of the things I could do with this degree for your particular business? And if it's very obviously, I'll pick on diesel. Bill Fry says I pick on diesel. I do, because there's a lot of diesel jobs that come to the fair. But if it's Pepe, they're probably not going to have something here local that an English major could do. However, if somebody is really a great technical writer, they may have somebody at their corporate headquarters they need those technical writing skills for, or they have marketing, or they have, so there's a variety of different things that people don't often think of, but it's good to walk up and chat with those recruiters. Idaho Central Credit Union, I asked her specifically, what are you going to be, recruiting for? I said, are you wanting to have a business and accounting? And she said, oh, sure. But then she goes, well, who I really want to talk to is the people that can communicate. And so that was kind of really interesting that, you jump to a financial business, and she's like, yeah, I mean, that's low-hanging fruit, right? But I really want to talk to the people that like to get out there and communicate, and can communicate well with others and interact well with others. And so I just encourage you to get the students out there asking questions and start dreaming a little bit and to dream big too, because there's some amazing businesses that are coming to the fair this year. And there's absolutely no reason why our students can't be landing some opportunities with them that will really, I think, just set them on some really interesting trajectories. That's what's exciting about it. So enough about the career fair.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
To encourage like our community students to go and ask questions.
Yes.
Is, do you have a blurb that you have written that say about, like just what you told us?
Mhm.
Because then maybe we could share it with all of our humanities majors and say, hey, go to the fair, talk to them about, and we can outline some skills that they can talk to them about, like, you know, their communication skills, writing skills, things like that. And then you can encourage them to go and say, and talk to everyone, because there's all of these things that they may not be thinking about, but they can still get a job.
Absolutely.
Doing something like that. So if I made a blurb and just send it out to them to encourage them to go.
Yeah. I will add that to my Thursday
I know.
Tuesday for that week prior. To say
Giant
that would be
list, so-
right just in time. So, jot that down real quick. And I didn't make it to your division meeting, but one of the other things that I talked about was just helping students get comfortable with the idea of going to the career fair too, because it can be pretty intimidating to walk in and there's a whole gym full of businesses and what do I do and how do I act? And we try to help out with that with I'll talk about Career Tip Tuesdays in a minute, but also we have the professionals clothing closet on campus, and that's just such a fantastic resource for students. They can go in, they can try on multiple pieces. We have all different sizes. So like for women, I was using the example of 0 to 22W. And then we have men's that are large, tall, everything in between. So there's a lot that's over there for our students to use. And it's very difficult to find clothes here in the Valley, as you are all aware, for professional purposes. So I appreciate that very much. And I'm really gonna work on that with our committee for the career fair as well. So we get something really specific. Yeah, absolutely. All right, digital credentials. And I do apologize for those of you who heard a little bit about this yesterday, but digital credentials are really up and coming. These electronic credentials, they're being offered by I feel like they really kind of started in the tech industry. So Adobe offered a lot of credentials to creative individuals. Microsoft has offered credentials for a number of years. Now it's really spreading throughout a lot of other fields. And these credentials travel with you. They're verifiable, so they're backed by some sort of an organization or institution. And last year, Polly Doherty had worked very hard on the leadership credential, which is why you see the leadership series and the skill builder series out there. And that's very established now. So leadership series is the 3rd week of the month during the semester, typically when it's full months, not the little shorties like August and whatnot. And then the skill builder series is the first Tuesday of every month. And we work with Holly on these too. So there's a lot of collaboration to get these up and running. And the skill builder series is a lot more hands-on workshop, getting the students really involved with the conversation. And the leadership series tends to be a little bit more of the presentation, where they're really listening to the individuals either talk about a topic or their experiences as a professional. And those, along with Career Tip Tuesdays, which our office is rolling out this year, and it does overlap again with some of the skill builders, that's on purpose, is to get really an established day and time where students know, I can grab a lunch, I can hit the sub, I can go learn something really quick that's going to contribute to everything else that's going on campus. Also, the career readiness and leadership credentials really tap in and encourage participation in all the other events that are going on campus too. So it's not just these, it's Multicultural week, there's so many things that they can learn from that week. And each one of those events, Polly has marked out there with, if it has leadership, if it has communication, if it has all these different pieces that fall into place, that really starts to build in the students' profile and allows them to earn these digital credentials. So those are two things. Leadership rolled out last year, career readiness is rolling out this fall. So a little bit of awareness about that. We also really get some going on professional development. We all get in the habit of professional development and staying renewed, and the students need to think about that now, not just when they get out there in the great wide world.
Sorry, can you explain this a little bit more? So
Sure.
these are like workshops. Do they come with like certifications?
The
or just,
credentials
like-
themselves are a digital certification, but
Okay.
they are career ready, or they have leadership experience.
And things they can put on their resume.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
leadership has one as well as, because I'm familiar with like, I'm certified in Word and Excel and
Uh-huh.
things like that. So
Yep.
leadership has them too.
Yep, leadership has one, and then career readiness. And so do you want to jump to the next slide and I'll kind of show? So it's a little bit small, but you can see what I typed over on the side. So all of these are the micro credentials that build into the full career readiness credential. So communication, teamwork, career management, which is that's a big one. That's really the capstone for the entire career readiness badge. Critical thinking, problem solving, professionalism, digital technology, leadership, and global and intercultural fluency. All of those build into that badge. Each one of those are micro credentials, so they kind of earn them step by step along the way. It's also fluid. So if they go to a whole bunch of things for Multicultural Week, and then they are participating in Native American Awareness Week, and they pick up some other things along the way, they may be 3/4 of the way to earning that micro credential. And then each one of them has a reflection piece at the end that really says, okay, let's put it all together. What do all these things mean, and how do you carry that forward into your career? Communication. It starts out with some of the basic 100 level classes and says, if you took this class and this class, guess what? You're halfway there to earning this credential. But now you need to do some applying of these things beyond the class. You need to do a little bit of reflecting beyond that class. How do you talk about those experiences in a way that communicates that to an employer, a graduate program, wherever that next step is? So that's really where this career readiness credential fits in.
How do they track this?
How do they track this? So a lot of it is through the Do More app, and then Do More and Handshake, we do a little bit of manual manipulation, right? I track things that are career related through Handshake, then we can export that to Do More. So they're kind of building this all in the background, which is really nice for the students. They can log into Do More and they see, oh my goodness, I've already achieved, this many things. Just really incentivizes them to go that one step further and, either put it all together or go to a few more of these things. You're interested in these, why not finish this off? I really like the idea of incentivizing, going to all the wonderful, activities and speakers and everything that we have going on campus. There's so many things that they could tap into and just learn that much more. So
Are these like the micro credentials? Can those be completed in a semester?
the micro credentials, potentially. The badge itself, this career readiness credential, the full
Yeah.
badge, I think it would take more like a year or two.
I was
It's-
like thinking is being able to offer like a micro credentials extra credit, like
Mhm.
I have, just
Yeah.
kind of going, if I understood, if I knew kind of, because I could see 3 of them that I could go. I could see saying, oh, or even, and doing, and if I understood like what the communication was, I could see
Mhm.
if you complete some of it, like for first year students,
Yes.
I could say, oh, if you complete, I don't know,
This
what
and
in
then
this,
this, yeah.
then as part of the communication credential, you'll get extra credit for class. Like I could see, and then it would kind of get them.
It gets them up and running. It gets,
Right,
yeah.
right. And
Yep.
so I can see, so I'm trying to see how, and then my advanced writing courses, I could see saying, oh, if you finish the communication or critical thinking or global fluency one,
Mhm.
then I'll give you extra credit for class.
Yep. Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of just to kind of, or even, I even could see for advanced students saying you have to,
Yeah.
like, log in and do this. Like, I might even could see making it a requirement to say, if you haven't done this, you need to do that. So,
It's, I think you and I see very much eye to eye on this, because when I introduced this to the work scholars, they're like, oh, we can do the job and we can do an internship and we can earn this credential. And I'm like, yes, I encourage you to get multiple scoops of ice cream.
Yeah.
double
Have
dip.
them all.
And you can get extra credit.
And you can get extra credit,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful, and I think they can and should be thinking that way.
So is all this information out online on your site or?
So the career readiness credential will be rolling out in October.
Okay.
The leadership credential there is information out there
Okay.
Through the Center for Student Leadership. So,
Okay.
and that's really led by Holly Doherty. She's been doing all of the work on that. And then the leadership in clubs too goes towards that leadership credential. So they really are working on these things as they go. It's just nice that they have to pause and reflect a little and say, oh, this is how this all fits together. So I wanted to just share that. I'll wrap up with this thought. I was reading in Inside Higher Ed. There was a study that was published called Careers in a Changing Era. And I'm constantly looking at this perception of the perceived skills gap. And that's what the percentages are that are on this sheet as well. There were 200 employers surveyed, and I can't remember the number of students that were surveyed, but looking closely at these perceptions, I'm not so sure there's as much of a disconnect. I think more of the disconnect, and it was quoted well in this study, was the massive disconnect is between where the employers signal what they want and what the employees are signaling. And that's so nuanced. And that's where I really want the career readiness credential to have that sweet spot, is to be able to help students translate what they know, what skills they've developed, and what experiences they've had, and be able to translate that in a way that the businesses can then understand. And then I think that just raises us all up that much more, because there's not that gap in communication. So any other questions about where we're headed with this? Well, thank you.
You did.
All right, so
I'll
I'm
pass
going
out the
to,
assignment.
talk just a little bit about this super cool joint class activity that Marlo and I are actually doing. And so Marlo, jump in anytime. Marlo and I are having our students read this wonderful book by honoring Ramon Jeffers, The Age of Phyllis, which is a creative work on Phyllis Wheatley. And in the back, she has this wonderful essay that talks about her process and why she chose to write all of these wonderful poems about Phyllis Wheatley, and really try to bridge the gap between, because there's not a lot known about her interior life, certainly, and what is known about her exterior life was written by a white woman years and years ago with all these cultural biases. And so she takes this and reinterprets and imagines. There are poems imagining, like, even going back to her birth and from her parents' perspective, and it just goes on, and it's just wonderful. And you can see her was a National Book Award long list. Anyway, she is going to be coming via Zoom to do a visiting writer, as a visiting writer, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But before that, Marlo's teaching the African American literature class, and I teach the creative nonfiction workshop. And so we decided to join our classes together in conjunction with Jeffers' visit. And so on October 11th, we're going to have all of our classes together, and we're going to do a one-on-one Zoom session with Jeffers, where we're inviting students to ask her questions about her book, her writing process, and all of those things. And it's going to be like a Q&A type session. And we're prepping our students, of course, for the session by having them read the book. And my students won't read the entire book. I'm just having my students, the nonfiction students, read the essay in the back of the book and a chunk of the poems from the beginning of the book so they can get a feel for her.
But my students will be reading the whole book, so
Yes.
that might be a place where they can, have conversations,
Exactly.
and they have the knowledge that your students might not, and so
Exactly.
they can ask questions about it too.
Yes, yes. And then we have different assignments that we're asking them to come to class prepared with to share. And I'll talk about my assignment here in just a moment, and I think that Marlo will talk about her assignment. One thing, when I've done Q&As with people who visit our classes before, I always have students come prepared to class with 3 questions to ask the writer. And I've done this with even my freshman classes, and I don't know if I scare them enough that I might be calling on you. So have your questions prepared. And they do. They come to class prepared with great questions, and sometimes we even do brainstorming in the class session before, so that not everyone asks the same question, and so they can be super prepared because we want this dynamic conversation. We don't want those awkward, weird pauses, especially on Zoom. And I always have questions, and I know Marlo will have questions, but really we want the students to ask the questions. So that's part of the class visit. And so we have Jeffers scheduled for 1 hour and 15 minutes where we'll have this Q&A, and the nonfiction workshop meets once a week. So after we take a short break, then we'll convene as a larger group, and we'll have some time for reflection and sharing their exercises that they did. My Jeffers inspired assignment, and I think Marla just handed it out, because I teach the nonfiction workshop, is a little bit different. So I'll just read through this really quickly. Do we have time? I can't see it.
It's 1:49.
Okay,
So
I'll be quick.
we probably want to have at least 5 minutes to
Yes,
open it up.
okay. So she recounts at the end of her essay, at the end of the book, why she wrote The Age of Phyllis. And she says, I waited for many years for somebody to see Phyllis and John, that's her husband, the way I saw them. For somebody to see her African parents is more than a few brief moments that would be forgotten by their little girl. For somebody to understand that Phyllis needed Obar, and that's a friend, because Black women need other Black women in their lives. I waited for somebody to love Phyllis as I loved her, and then I stopped waiting. I decided it was past time I wrote this book. And as I just described, rather than writing a traditional biography of Phyllis Wheatley, Jeffers explores her life through the genre that Wheatley herself embraced, which was poetry. And through these poems, Jeffers uses creative license to overcome those white gaps in Wheatley's narrative to humanize her and her family and her experience. These poems, Mothering One and Fathering One, which I briefly mentioned, she imagines her birth and what that was like. So my student's assignment is to research a deceased famous person that you know little about and would like to know more. And I want them to go far back in history. I don't want anything from recent history. So try prior to 20 and 21st century, just go back. For instance, maybe they've heard of Kate Chopin, Marie Antoinette, Mozart, Bonaparte. I mean, they can do anything, but somebody that they've heard about, they don't know a lot about. And then I want them to read about one incident or event in that person's life and write an imagined nonfiction scene about that event from that person's perspective. Or from the perspective of a person close to them, a relative, spouse, friend, etc. In addition to relaying the facts, try exploring that person's internal life and humanizing them for your reader. You can use first person or third person. My little example here is when Kate Chopin was 5 years old, her father died in an accident. She lived in a matriarchal household with her widowed mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, an arrangement which likely influenced her feminist perspective in later works. Her great-grandmother spent a lot of time tutoring her and encouraging her, as I know here, to explore unconventional ideas. And so based on this information, I might develop a scene where I imagine the great-grandmother and Kate Chopin during one of their tutoring sessions. And so I just started, the young girl sits with her great-grandmother beside the hearth, a few glowing coals. all that remains of morning fire. It's been a year since her father's terrible train accident, and her memories of him, of his presence in the house of any man's, have grown dim as those embers. Has grown as dim as those embers. In her grandmother's hand is a book. Now then, the old woman says, and then they could go on. And so I do all sorts of different perspectives in creative nonfiction, and this I thought would be a great opportunity to try to emulate something that Jeffers has done. So Marlo,
Yeah.
yours.
Well, mine is on, if you have the printed copy, it's on the other side of the Jennifer's assignment. And so my students are not necessarily creative writers, but students of literature. And so their assignment, well, the first thing I just want to point out is that since I'm requiring them to go to Jennifer's class, which is at a time our class does not meet, I put that on the syllabus, and I will be talking about it on the first day of class. And I put it in bold that says this assignment requires that you are available for a meeting outside of the scheduled class time. Obviously, if a person can't make it, I will give them an alternate assignment, but I'm really trying just to front load the expectation from the very beginning that they will be present for this amazing opportunity that we have. So and then I've given them 4 things to do. One is a literary analysis where they respond to the book that they read. The second is preparing the questions. So the same thing that Jennifer's asking her students to do. And then I asked them to do some informal writing about their research project that they'll be doing at the end of the semester. So Jennifer's students will be a little bit further along because they'll actually have written their research piece, and my students can hopefully learn from what they have done as they develop their own work. And then lastly, I asked them to reflect on it. And some of the questions I asked them to consider are, how did meeting with creative writers change your experience of this? How did having this class with Honorary Jeffers change the way you experience her reading? Because I am going to ask them to attend or watch the recording of her reading as well.
And then she will be our fall visiting writer via Zoom. It'll be live streamed on the Humanities Division YouTube channel Wednesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. And for those who can't make it, it will be up for to the public for a month. And then after that, it will be password protected, but we'll have links and we can give everyone who wants access to that at a later date access. And then just looking ahead really quickly to spring 2022, 2 writers scheduled. Joe Wilkins is going to deliver the Stegner Lecture on Friday, March 11th, 2022. And Tina Ontiveros will be reading from her new memoir, Rough House, which won a 2021 Pacific Northwest Book Award on Thursday, April 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. And Tina Ontiveros, you probably read about her maybe in the Tribune a few weeks ago. She read at the library, and I went to that reading, and it was just dynamite. She grew up in poverty in a little trailer with her family in the Tanapuski area, moved around like numerous times by the time she was 1 year old. And really it's about her father and her experience with him and in this life. And so she's also going to do a class visit in the spring, and then she's going to do a reading, and hopefully these will be on campus. Fingers crossed, but we just never know.
So we do have 4 minutes left for conversation, and I think I'll just open it up to kind of a large conversation in our remaining minutes to think about how you might use campus and community events and how they relate to your teaching objectives, what works for your type of classes and what might not. If you're like, I would never send my students to a poetry reading, but maybe there are ways to think about how that might connect to them, or other ideas you have for fostering community engagement and the challenges we face. Anyone want to jump in on any of that?
I'm really excited about the multicultural month events. I'm doing the Belonging Project again with my English 103 students. And so I might be emailing you, Kerensa, to ask for maybe a guest speaker to come in and visit with
Yeah.
the class, I would love that, because that's what we're celebrating. That's my course theme is LCSC's cultural diversity.
Oh,
So
good.
super excited
Yeah,
about
and
that.
yeah, and I connected you with Manny because again, she's going to come into my class and again talk about identity. And so they're going to do an identity art project, and it's all about exploring, where you belong, right? Your identity and how people
fantastic.
interact. And so I'm sure she could have tips, or again, maybe you want to come to my class and see how she does it and model it. I mean, I think there's
Oh,
lots
that
of
would be
opportunities.
fantastic.
Yeah, and so I guess that, I mean, from the questions that you have up there, that's what makes me really excited is I will glom onto people like Manny, and she did this wonderful mind work brainstorming that she recorded.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
don't know
that
if we
was
have
so
a
good.
copy, but she modeled this and really sparked that interest, like, oh, I think we should have kind of this as a foundation, and how can we do this in multiple platforms out for Welcome Week, in a classroom? Can we display it on campus? And I just think those are really great opportunities for kind of bringing together lots of ideas from lots of people, and creating a
Yeah.
space to kind of connect people. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I'm gonna put something onto the last question you had.
Yeah.
What are the challenges?
Yeah.
Some of them are structural. So
Mhm.
some of the things we just know right away. We know Native American Awareness Week, Multicultural Awareness Week or month. But some of the programs we don't necessarily know, and some of us might already working with the summer or earlier when exactly it is.
Yeah.
So mostly, I do not tend to integrate it directly into the syllabus. I'm
Mhm.
just gonna tell when somebody asks me, we're gonna have the event, and then I use Canvas for it. I think what would be really helpful is, this is some of the things we have been doing today. And maybe we can use the CTL forums as a platform. I have just been working, for instance, on Constitution and honorary lecture.
Mhm.
Here's again, here are my alternative assignments if you cannot attend these. So what I'm usually doing is, I don't even do the video recording. Sometimes there are, sometimes not. But I always have been doing, okay, here's text or two texts. You can't make it, but you want to read it, you can read it.
Mhm.
And so if we can just have, or maybe encourage each other, maybe we've got a general thing, let's say, hey, you have an event. Here's a suggestion that we do in our class, maybe it works for your class, maybe it doesn't, but which covers the same kind of topic somebody can asynchronously read or take a look at, or like the video is going to be here and then they can watch. And I think that would really help to maybe plus meaning after you build your syllabus to actually integrate.
Mhm.
The second thing, there was actually two other things. And I was wondering, I know we have all this website and we have all of the different things. I was nearly wondering, I don't know if it's even possible, would make sense. But like we have like that training sites on Canvas for different things. I was wondering for CTL or some other ones, to just have, here's a Canvas course, which lists continuously what we are doing. Yes, and we just plug things in. And we're going to be all signed up for it. Students can sign up for it and they can just go there and it's already in there. The third thing which popped into my mind is this, when I again look around online and here, we are basically, no personal offense, but most of us are from humanities or social sciences. So I do know that we have things going on in the nursing, the business, and other ones, and it's, I mostly know what happens in humanities. I mostly know what happens in social sciences,
Right.
but I get late information sometimes what happens in other ones.
Yeah.
Just to cross fertilize, that would be helpful there.
Yeah, no, this seems to be an ongoing conversation, right? The good news is we are going to have a CTL Canvas site. It's coming. And so that might be a great place to do, to kind of, people can add things and share there, because it is always a question.
And it's no offense taken, because I'm here to cross pollinate. Because there's things I learn here too, that it's like, oh, okay, well, we need to all be, talking about these things and these dates, or this is coming up, or this idea has been brought up, and there's more places where this idea seems to be springing up. So I do agree, and I've talked with other people too. I mean, for the students, there's more centralized calendars, but planning wise sometimes too, is a little bit difficult because we may be well into planning before we realize that two people are planning something pretty big on the same dates. And that's just frustrating for everybody.
Well, and we are past our time, but I did just want to see if Nancy or Amy on Zoom have any, I don't want to ignore you over there in our other sphere.
I'm just really excited. I feel like I got so much information and my mind is kind of whirling. I just really appreciate all the opportunities, just like you said, Amy, in the chat. And thank you. I'll be hunting you all down, on my own and finding out more. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and we'll continue these conversations. I really appreciate your ideas.
I know we're done. Can I say two more things?
Oh.